Welcome back. If you've brewed all grain before, or at least you've had a friend that has, you know nothing can make or break your brew day like a lack of mill or a poorly functioning mill. Today I'm going to talk about the different kind of mills you can use and why I use a particular setup and how I went about finding that setup. Well, first, if you've been researching mills, you probably know about this. This is called a Corona mill or a plate mill. I think there's a company called Victoria that makes them. And they're a great way to start. Your grandmother might have one laying around. They're cheap to get, about 40 bucks. As you can see, there's nothing really much to them. They mount to a table. They have a hopper on top. If you've brewed beer before, you know that you need a lot more grain than what this hopper holds, so you're continually filling it. Usually there's a hand crank. It's pretty laborious. For a 10-gallon batch, you're looking at about 30 to 45 minutes. You can adapt this to a drill, but this tends to want to shoot grain all over the place. You can make a little plastic baffle, but if you're serious about brewing, I really recommend a roller mill, which is why I'll show you what I have set up right here. Going back to the Corona mill, I have adapted it to fit into a TV cabinet, which alleviated the pain of loading the grain, as well as the splash associated with the grain going crazy. But if you're really serious about brewing, and you're going to stick with it a while, I mean, let's be honest, you're not going to stop drinking beer. So let's talk about the roller mill. The roller mill is about as good as it gets for homebrewers. It's a little bit more expensive, but it works every time. And let me show you why. And let me show you why I'm so excited. This is fitting in our theme of compact brewing. Tucks away neatly. As you see these, you recognize these as the 6.5-gallon fermenters. What you probably didn't notice was the mill that was hiding inside. Let me show you how I came about the design and why I did what I did. So when it comes to mill day, you'll put a plastic bag in here. That'll catch your grains. Your mill goes atop like this. How I designed the mill was pretty simple. I knew I wanted a hopper. Monster Mill, I think they offer a 15-pound hopper and a 30-pound hopper. I brew double batch, and usually I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 pounds. It's not that I didn't want to pay for the hopper, it's actually quite a good deal. But in my previous experience, I found that the vibration of the drill shimmied the hopper loose, and then that would want to fall over. And I designed something much better. It's probably costs $5 to $10 to make, and it works every time. So what we got here, this is a water jug. It's a water service jug. You get it at your local grocery store. They offer it obviously in 5 gallons. This one's 2.5 or 3 gallons, and this one holds about 15 pounds. Anything more, I feel like that's overkill. Also, if you went 5 gallons, it wouldn't fit in here properly. It would stick out. So that's why I went with this size. To do this, it's quite simple. You take your water jug, take an X-Acto knife, put it in there, go all the way around. Do make sure you get some sandpaper and take this edge down. It's razor sharp. So I'm going to take off the hopper and I'm going to show you the innards of the mill here. The first thing you're going to want to do is when you get your mill, you're going to want to cut a base for it. And this is what I'm calling the base here, the circular thing. I've chosen to make mine on an OSB because I had it, but you can use plywood just the same. You're going to want to cut it to the size of your bucket, your fermenter. You don't want to cut it too tight, because if it's too tight, you're going to scrape up the inside of your plastic, and that could harbor bacteria. Too loose, and it's going to fit sloppily. So my recommendation is take your bucket, go face down on a piece of OSB, trace around it, and then maybe cut inside about 1/4 of an inch. You can cut with a jigsaw, or you can cut with a hacksaw, at the very worst, or a Dremel. Dremel will work to cut that out. After you've got your base piece cut out, set your mill on it, and make the holes where they need to go. These should have been included with whatever mill that you buy. So you want to measure the size of it and make a hole that's slightly bigger. Drill holes through it, and then set your bolts. It's important to put washers underneath because you do want to put a decent amount of pressure on this and you don't want it to pull through the OSB. And you're going to want to play around with this shaft to make sure it spins freely. If you drill the holes and your mill is cockeyed, it's going to put stress on this and it won't spin freely. And that's when you know when it spins freely that it's going to work and that it's square. These are just little wings I cut, and that's important because it helps set the mill in here nicely. Just kind of keeps it, gives it another base. These wings on top keep it from falling through. And also this little wing on the side keeps the grain from splashing to the side. And it will make a lot of dust. It's going to make some dust, but it will kick kernels out without it. I've also used a brick on the side, and that works well. Really, anything to cover the right-hand side works. On top of the mill, you need something to cheat out the hopper a little bit. Otherwise, if the hopper was resting right on top, there's no depth. And it won't allow the grains to go the whole duration of the mill. You paid for about 6 inches of mill here, you might as well use all the grip and all the thread. So here, I've used two 2x4s, and these 2x4s are about 1.5 inches, so that has given me 3 inches of total vertical clearance. The size of this hole, I used a hole cutter. You can see it's a nice clean hole. It's a 2¼ inch hole cutter, and at the bottom, I just cut a square on the bottom 2x4 that goes the whole length of the mill, and this allows the grain to come down and spread out and go through the mill. On top, I got obviously 3+ inch bolt, and you're going to have to take in the bolt that they give you because they're going to give you a shorter one. Take it into a hardware store and get the right thread and get a couple different sizes. If you're too long, use washers to shim it up. If you're too short, well, you can use maybe one 2x4 and a couple pieces of OSB. Like I said, I've done OSB and 2x4. 2x4 was the fastest. I had it laying around, and there's less squaring up on the mill. Again, if you get it cockeyed, you're going to pull the whole mill out of whack, and it's not going to spin freely like it should. After you've got the mill in place, you've got it square, you know that the roller is free rolling, and it moves nicely, it's time to put your hopper on top. The hopper's very simple. I cut the throat off here to allow for a nice vertical clearance of the grains to cover the whole roller. Final thing is to set it in the hole. Maybe you need to take some sandpaper to kind of get it to fit in there right. But otherwise, the only thing I do to affix it, 2 wood screws and washers. Put that down, then you screw those into your 2x4. There's nothing to that really.